Okay, so let's start. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so this is typically what we have whenever you want to build any software application. There's what we call software development life cycle, where we have to first of all plan out our software. So this planning, the owner of the software that has the project requirements talks with the product manager and maybe any technical person that knows how to build this website. Then they discuss what features do we have for this website or this application or this software. We want this software to be able to have the ability for somebody to check balance, withdraw money, deposit funds, or exit if he doesn't choose to do any of this. So because of that, then we're going to plan out this is how we create the software. So somebody is going to have a balance, and there has to be when the person logs in and does his operation, that is called a session. So the ATM displays a menu that shows check balance, withdraw deposit, or exit as options. So the user now is asked to select one of these options. So you can select one that represents checking balance, two that represents withdrawal, three that represents deposit, or four that represent that he wants to exit. So this option is reading, and depending on the value of the option, the ATM performs the following operation. So it withdraws, or it deposits, or it exits, or it checks balance. Then if it is trying to withdraw, it will ask you to put the amount that you want to withdraw. If that amount is less than or equal to zero, then it is invalid. If that amount is greater than the balance, you cannot withdraw something that is greater than your balance. So if that is the case, you say insufficient. You say that that is insufficient. But if it makes proper sense, if it is neither of these, then proper withdrawal is done. Then if the person chose to deposit, if you're depositing an amount that is less than or equal to zero, then that is an invalid amount. You cannot deposit minus 200 or minus 10. But if you put a proper amount, then proper depositing is done. Then if the person chose the option of exiting, which is option number 4, exiting, you simply say thank you. Thank you for working with us. Goodbye. But if the user does not select any of the 4 options, then you're going to ask him that you've selected invalid option, that he should better choose any of the 4 options listed. So that is the planning of how ATM works. That is why if you're developing a software, especially for the product managers or product people, they need to understand how the product works, because if they don't, then you will not know the right information to pass on to the developers or to the designer to design. So anybody that is a product manager has to be somebody that have used products. There was this company I was working with, and I had to design a something that looks like a car hailing app, like Uber or InDrive. So in the process of this design, I had to study InDrive and Uber. That app, I had to study it in total. Like I had to go into it. I had to see how everything works, because me, I was the solution architect for the project. So I needed to design the databases, know the right APIs to connect for payments, know how payments are done, know how car hailing is done. Once somebody wants to choose a ride, what happens? So you need to understand all those things very, very well because you're going to plan out the project that you're going to build. If you don't understand how those things work, you will not be able to plan it out. And as the solution architect, you're supposed to know, plan it out very well, then pass on your knowledge to the designer, to the Figma people. You can see the design. Because I was able to understand that this is how this project will work. That's why I was able to write this out. So from these plans that I've written out, I can sketch something for the design people, the Figma people to start drawing. So they will use their Figma and draw something like this. You can see that this is interpreting what I have here. So it has a menu that has options 1, 2, 3 to 4. And this menu is going to ask the user, do you want to pick option 1, which is to check balance? Do you want to pick option 2, which is to withdraw? Do you want to pick option 3, which is to deposit? Or you want to pick option 4, which is to exit? Now, if the person picks any of these options, now something happens. So if you pick option 1, it will just check the balance for you. But if you pick option 2, it's going to ask the amount that you want to withdraw. And depending on the amount, tell you invalid withdrawal amount, insufficient fund, or does the actual withdrawal. Now, if the person picks option 3, it's going to ask you for the amount that you want to deposit. Then based on the amount that you put in, it's going to check whether it's an invalid deposit or it does the normal deposit. Now, if the person chooses option number 4, it's going to say, thank you for using the ATM, goodbye, because option number 4 simply says exit. Now, if the person chooses anything not 1 to 4, then it's going to say invalid option chosen. And once it says invalid option, it's going to ask the person to choose 1 to 4. So that is what happens. So because you've designed this very well, most times they're not going to put this if statement. This is for the developers to understand, but they might just put something like this. Okay, this if statement is for us to also display the right information. Okay, so they are going to put this in a diagrammatic form. They're actually going to put it different screens depending on the option that you pick. So with these diagrams that the Figma people must have put together, or the product people, it will then be passed on to you and I, who are the actual developers. Then we will then start writing the code using our preferred language. And the preferred language here is C#, but it could be any other language. Okay, so that's what happens. And the person that will be doing this planning or fine-tuning this planning with the owner of the project will also be solution architects or developers like me and you that have matured over time, so that you can be able to interpret what the customer wants into valuable artifacts that could be used in the software development. Okay, so after the design, now we'll start the number 3 step, which is to develop the application. So in developing the application, that's when you start writing the codes. So you can write this same code that I've written in C# in Java. You can also write it in Python. You can write it in JavaScript. In fact, you can write it using any programming language. But here our programming language of choice is C sharp. And in writing the C sharp, we simply say using system, because we are going to be using some classes from the system namespace like console.writeLine. Then we'll put all our program inside a class known as program. We can also call this class ATM instead of program. Then we enclose all our lines of code in the main function. But I say we do this because we are just starting. In later times, we're going to be writing our codes anywhere but referencing them from the main function so that they can run, because the compiler looks for this main function and starts there to compile the codes line by line. So the first line the compiler is going to see is that we are assuming that the balance is 5,000. And we're also assuming that this is a running session, that this person is currently using his ATM. So once these assumptions are right, we can then console.writeLine ATM menu. So if you want to display this very ATM menu, now you're looking at this design to write your code. If you want to display all these things, you can display them effectively using console.writeLine. So that's why I displayed all of them with console.writeLine, all the options. Then I asked the user to select any of the options from 1 to 4. If he selects this option, I'm going to read it in and save it as option. And why did I read it in and save it as option? Because I want to be able to check if that option is the string 1. And if it is the string 1, I simply say your current balance is, then I reference the balance that was stated here, this very balance. Okay, so that's why I assigned it as a variable. I also assigned balance as a variable here so that I can always call it here. Now, if option 2 is picked, then I know that we want to withdraw. So I'm going to ask him to enter the amount he wants to withdraw. If he enters it, I'm going to read it in and convert it to double. Then I'll check if that amount is greater than balance. I'll say invalid amount. No. I think here is greater than. Here is should be, first of all, it should first of all be less than or equal to 0. Oh, I think that was what this guy was picking out then. Right, was that what we are picking out? So if it is less than or equal to 0, then it's an invalid amount, because it cannot be negative, it cannot be minus 200. Then it's an invalid amount. But if it is greater than balance, it's insufficient, because you can never withdraw something that is greater than the balance that you have. But once it's not less than 0 and it's not greater than the balance, then you can simply say that the balance, the old balance you have, I don't know why I was getting the spellings of my balance wrong. The old balance that you have minus that withdrawal amount will give you the current balance. Okay. Perfect. Now, if you picked option 3, that means you want to deposit. Then you not need to ask the person to enter the amount he wants to deposit. Then once he enters the amount, read it in, convert it to double, and assign it to variable double, because you want to check something with this variable. Now you say if the deposit amount is less than or equal to 0, then it is an invalid amount to deposit. But once it's not any number that is minus number, you can simply say that the current balance will now be the old balance plus the deposit amount. You know, when you're depositing, you're adding more money to the money you had. Okay, so it also has a short form of writing it. So once you've done it, you have to say that this deposit was a success. I hope I also said that this was a success once the balance was done. Okay, then if you picked up some 4, then you have to simply say thank you for using the ATM, goodbye. If you didn't pick any of the option, it will say invalid option, please select 1 to 4. Good. So I believe this is balance. So this is good. So the next step would be for us to test it out. Aito, what do you think about this program? Aito, are you there? Okay, I can't hear you, but if you want to talk, you can drop it in the text area. Okay, so the next one will be to do the number 4th step, which is to test. And basically in testing, we can do .NET build and then .NET run, or mostly we can just use .NET run. After that, we're going to deploy. So we can also build and then run on the server so that other people can consume it. And finally, we need to maintain this application. And in order to maintain this application, we need to, might decide to, as users are using it, so users might ask us to add a loan feature. So make it possible that people can then loan from this application. Can also add a print account statement feature. Okay, so that is maintenance. So under maintenance, we can also fix a bug. So we can, after running this, or as users are using it, we notice something that is not good, it's not working well. Can also ask to fix a bug. Okay, yeah, so this is about good. So I will now ask you guys to put this in your editor and run. So you can also get this if you're not following me to type. You can get this from the website by going to educateafricans.com. You click on this React Software Engineering course. React Software Engineering course. You allow it to open up. you go down here under assignments and take home, because that's what we are currently doing. Then you get to ATM program. This is the program we just wrote. So please study this program and run it exactly the way I showed you. So first of all, you need to create a .NET application using the command .NET new console -n, and the name of the application will be ATM. So create that application. Then open this up, study this code. This is the code I just wrote now. You can see this. Type it in, don't copy it, but type it in and run it. So in subsequent classes, you guys, I'm going to appoint you to explain it. This one is quite bulky, more than the ones we've been doing before. So I'm not going to ask you to write this now, but study it so that in the next class you should be able to write it. So study it by typing it out. Don't copy and paste. Type it out, run it, and make sure that it works. Okay, and that is where we're going to be coming to the end of today's class. See you when I see you. Thank you.